Hey traders, hope everybody had a good weekend. Mine's pretty busy, so just now getting the chance to make this video. So let's jump right in. So the first trade I have is Amazon. On Tuesday, I sold the 3100 30.95 put credit spread. I received a credit for $1.65, and I was able to close it out the next day for 0.45, and it gave me a total profit of $600. I had 5 contracts. Also on Tuesday, I sold a put in Chewy to play their earnings that were coming up on Thursday of that week. I sold the 49 strike, and the next day I closed it out just because Chewy had a nice pop, and I was able to close it out for about 50% of my total credit. So I was able to make a quick $280 on that one. And I went ahead and got out thinking that I would probably get back into it later in the week anyway, which is what I ended up doing. Then on Wednesday, I sold a put in Citigroup. I sold the 50.5 strike expiring that week. I received a 53-cent credit and was able to close it out the next day for 7 cents. So that was a nice one-day profit of 460. And then also in 9/9, I did a 0 DTE trade in SPX. So it was expiring on 9/9 that same day. I sold the 34.30, 34.35 call credit spread. I received a credit at 85 cents. And I let it expire worthless, so I did not have to pay to buy it back. So I got the full credit of $595 total. I did 7 contracts. Then on 9/10, I decided to put on a quick trade in AMD. I sold the 81 strike expiring the next day. I got a credit of $1.06. Shortly after I got in, AMD started to drop, and then on Friday it was dropping even more, so I was forced to roll it. I had to roll it down to the 79 strike to next week, and I got a credit of 4 cents to roll it. I just did 5 contracts on that one, but you can see that if I would have closed it out and not rolled it, I would have lost $950. But since AMD has dropped even more, now I would lose $1,385 if I were to close it out right now. Peloton, this was also an earnings play. So I got into this the day before the earnings. I sold the 120 call. I received a $1.45 credit. And then later in the day, Peloton started running up and I could close it out for 68 cents. So I went ahead and did that to make a profit of $308. But if anyone held this through earnings, you should have made max profit on this because Peloton actually dropped after the earnings announcement. So this 120 strike expired worthless. But I wanted to get out of it again to get back into Chewy, and I needed that available buying power to be able to do it. So then I jumped into Chewy again for their earnings. I sold a 53 strike. I got a credit of 54 cents. In my email alert, I said that I had a limit order to close it at 1 cent, but I eventually did raise that up to 2 cents just to go ahead and get out of it and free up that margin. So I made a total profit of $520 on that one. Lyft was a trade that I had rolled from the previous week. I was able to close it out this past week. I closed it out for 24 cents. So between the initial credit and the rolls, I got a total profit of, I closed it out for 34 cents. I got a total profit of 24 cents. So that gave me a $240 profit. Match is one that I've been rolling a couple weeks. I had to roll it again. I started at the 110 strike and I've got it down to 108. You can see that the initial roll, I would have lost 3,100 if I'd have closed it out then. This week I would have lost 4,100 if I'd have closed it out. And right now I could close it out and I would take a $2,600 loss. RKT is one that I put on a couple weeks ago. It's a monthly expiration. I sold the 25 strike. This was for an earnings play. I got a credit of $1.02. It's down right now, so I'm down about $1,400 on this one. If it doesn't come back above 25, I'll have to roll it. The nice thing is I did see where they added some weekly expirations for this one, so I won't be forced to roll it to October monthly expiration. I should be able to roll it to the next week. Apple's one that I've been rolling for a couple weeks, so we started at the 126.25 strike. I've got it down to the 123.75 strike when I rolled it this past week. I got a 25-cent credit for that roll. I've got 6 contracts. And you can see if I would have closed it instead of rolling it, I would have lost $5,800. And right now I'm down about $6,400 on it based off of the closing price on Friday. And then lastly, Etsy, another one been rolling for a few weeks. Started the 123 strike. I've got it down to the 115. So this has been a really nice roll. I've been able to lower this down by 8 points. And still sticking with the trade. I got a 34-cent credit for that roll. So if I hadn't have rolled that trade and just closed it out, I would have lost $3,900, but right now I'm down about $2,300 on that if I were to close it out based off of Friday's close. So you can see for the week, I had a total profit of $3,003. But you can see if I had not have rolled these trades, I would have taken a $14,906 loss. And as of right now, if I were to close all these trades out, I would lose about $14,263. So my video last week, I think I was down about 10,000. Now I'm down about 14,000, but also keep in mind I made profit of 3,000 as well. So right now my buying power is pretty high. It's probably around 95%. So if we do have another significant drop this upcoming week, I will have to start closing out some of these positions, which I'm fine with. I was fine having that high of buying power usage just because I knew that I could close some of these out. So for example, the three that are taking up my most margin are Match, Apple, and Etsy. Apple being the one that's taking up the most. So what I would probably do if I need to free up margin, I would probably close out my Match or my Etsy, both of which are a little over 2,000 to close it out. If I close one of those out, that'll get me back down to using about 80% of my buying power, which is a more comfortable level for me. So that's one option. Another option I could do is I could turn some of these into spreads. Like Apple, for example, is taking up about 20,000 of my buying power. I was looking at some options to turn it into a spread, and I could actually reduce my margin requirement in half for Apple if I were to change it to a spread. So instead of being at 20,000 of my buying power being used, it would get it down to around 10,000. So that's another option that I can do. If I don't want to have to close out some of these other positions to free up margin, I could also turn Apple into a spread, and that would drop my margin requirement on that stock by half. So those are things I'll consider this week. It'll just depend on what the market is doing and how these stocks are trading to determine what decision I make. Hopefully I won't have to do any of that. If the market stays relatively flat this week or goes up a little bit, then I won't be in jeopardy of having to close these out. Because like I said, right now, I've got about, I think 5,000 of my buying power is available still. Some of you have messaged me and said that you went ahead and closed some of these trades out and just took the loss because you were afraid that it would keep dropping, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I personally plan to stick with these trades as long as I have the buying power to do so. And then I will start closing positions out as I need to free up available margin. If it means closing out an entire position or maybe just freeing up a few contracts. Maybe I won't close out Match, for example, the entire 6 contracts. Maybe I only need to close out 2 or 3 contracts to get myself in a situation where I have enough buying power available. But those are all things that I won't really know until I can see how the market's trading this week. Also, I mentioned in my email that I sent on a Friday that I was debating on putting on a new trade in Peloton. I did decide to put on that trade, but in the email I mentioned I was going to do the 80 strike. But by the time I went to get in it late in the day, the stock had dropped where I was able to get in at a lower strike price. So here's my trade history. As I mentioned in the email, I couldn't put on this trade when I wanted to because I was still in the Chewy trade waiting for it to close, and I didn't have enough margin to put on the Peloton trade until my Chewy closed. So you can see around 3:40, so about 20 minutes before the market closed, 5 of my contracts for my Chewy trade closed out. So that freed up enough margin for me to go ahead and sell 4 contracts of Peloton, and I went ahead and did the 76 strike instead of the 80, just because I was able to get the credit that I was wanting at the 76 strike, so there was no need for me to stick with the 80 strike. Because as you know, I like to get roughly $500 when I put on a trade, so at 4 contracts, that's pretty much how much I've received. And then the remainder of my Chewy contracts closed out shortly thereafter. So that's all I have. I don't anticipate putting on any new trades this week until I can get some of these positions cleared up. Ideally, I'd like to be able to close out a couple of those trades before I consider putting on a new trade. If I do put on a new trade, it would be some kind of spread, maybe another 0 DTE trade, just because that takes up less of my buying power. But we'll just see how things go this week. Thanks.